Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, another Wednesday night, another pound, another dollar. And here we are, absolutely live. Hang on, now just to show that we are live, I've got the sound on my laptop going, but I've turned it off now. Everything is okay. It is edition number 46, week number 46 on Business Connections Live, and we've got a fantastic guest with us this evening. It's Nikki Creel. She's going to be talking about Twitter, but more importantly, time, tools and tips. Yeah. Come on, let's find out a bit about you, because you were on programme number one. So
I feel honoured that I've actually been invited back.
Well, you were so good the first time round, we thought we've got to have that woman back. And of course, you've been really, really busy. For those people that don't know what you're about, what does Nikki Creel do in her real life?
In my real life, I'm a social media consultant, a trainer, and I'm the author of How to Twitter for Business Success.
Now, we've got to point the book out because it's very important, because it is her book, but you're actually getting involved with cooperatives with other people at the moment as well. Actually, you're writing chapters for different people and things like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, a co-author, trainer, and you're doing all of that. So how did you get into this whole art and this malarkey?
I got into it because I needed more business. I was a master NLP practitioner. Originally, my background is in marketing.
An NLP?
Yes, NLP.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
We're all big fans of that here.
So it was one of these things that I was so in love with NLP that I wanted to sell the NLP, and I forgot all the marketing that I'd ever learnt. And everybody said, you have to get on Twitter, you must get on Twitter. And I started a Twitter account in August 2009, and within 2 days I ran away because I just did not get it. The jargon freaked me out. It was full of links and I didn't know what it was, and the conversations didn't make sense. To me, they were just random sentences out
Do you
there.
think that's what a lot of people feel when they initially go onto it? Because there are two types, aren't there? Three types. You've got the initial ones who will go on there, they get it, they love it, and stick with it. So they're the Stephen Frys of the world, I would imagine. Then you get the ones who feel that they should be doing it, so they go on, and there's a big burst of energy initially, lots of messages. I'm having a coffee, I'm just walking out the front door, I'm getting in the car, you know, all of that, and it lasts for about 2 weeks, and then it slowly disappears. And then you get I suppose, the businesses who feel they should be doing it as well. I mean, it must be a real problem when it comes to understanding it straight away to get rolling and running on it.
I think Twitter is probably the easiest social media platform to get to grips with, but it's also got the highest phobias, or the fear factor. I think it triggers a lot of things for different people. So when I'm training courses, Twitter's the one where I find people holding their breath or freaking out about being public, or being broadcasting themselves. But for any business now, I would really think they need to be on business, be using Twitter for business. It's funny, a few years ago when I was starting to talk about social media, people would ask the question, what is Twitter? Whereas nobody does that now.
People get it.
Okay, we need to be on Twitter, so how do we get started?
You touched on it there just for a second, the legalities of what Twitter is all about. Do you think people are now understanding that what they write, because it is in the public domain, but more importantly, even if they become a publisher in their own right, don't they? So if something is libelous that they've read or they've heard, and they republish it using Twitter, they're as guilty as the first party. Do you think people are getting that now and becoming more cautious?
Most people aren't really aware that they're actually publishing. So they think and there's some private conversations going on, and you think this shouldn't be really,
shouldn't be here.
But the same laws, so it's the laws of defamation, slander, advertising standards. You can't do things that you wouldn't do, say, in an email. And I think people understand, because people used to think emails were private. And then there started being lawsuits and people being sacked because they'd sent an email to somebody else and it was being used in the court of law. But generally, if you say nice things about people, they are not going to sue you.
So nice things are good, bad things are bad.
Well, you're allowed to have your own opinion, but generally you find there are two groups of people on Twitter. You get people who whinge and complain, and you get people who positive and happy people and saying good, positive things. The two groups don't talk to each other. Guess which group has got the biggest number of followers?
The bad group?
No.
Oh.
They've got fewer followers, fewer retweets, and their message doesn't get through. But negative people attract negative people, positive people attract positive people.
I would imagine that if a business actually gets negative tweets about their business, should we say, that can be quite damaging.
It can be quite damaging, but if you don't even know, because you're not on Twitter, and you don't know that somebody's talking about you, that's even worse. Because you cannot, if somebody is saying something bad about you, you need to know, and you can respond to it. If somebody, I think a lot of small business owners feel that, oh, people are going to say bad things about me. But the reality is, if you can take a complaint, deal with it in a good way, you probably got a loyal customer.
How do you know, though? I know that when you do a tweet, the tweet will actually be searched and will come up on Google, in fact, won't it? And you can, I mean, it goes very quickly into the public domain right across the board.
Yeah.
So, but how do you deal with, and I know we're going off on a tangent here straight away, but how do you deal with something like that? Makes it sound like I've had a complaint about me. I hope I haven't. I haven't found it yet.
Well.
I mean, there's been a few things said about me in the past, but not just recently. But, I mean, how do you go about doing that?
Okay, I would suggest that any business person has a Google alert for the business name, and also there's something called mention, which you can actually get your business name, so you get email when it appears in the social sphere. But you should regularly be searching on Twitter to see if somebody's.
And I suppose it's a case of being actually proactive at Twitter, isn't it? Don't just start it and then forget about it. Do something about it. And of course, the big organisations, the utility companies and the banks and people like that, they will have teams that are scouring the internet, aren't they? They're using tools that if their name is mentioned in a tweet, they can do something about it. And we've heard stories as well where you have complained till you're blue in the face directly to the organisation, but the moment you start slagging them off on Twitter, instantly you get a response back, which I think is amazing and shows the power actually of Twitter itself, doesn't it?
I think at Twitter everybody's equal, so companies don't back in the 80s or 70s or whatever, you know, the companies had all the power. What they said was right. You accepted, you know, the person who had the biggest budget won. Whereas now the consumer has a lot more power. But some customers are like holding businesses to ransom, saying if you don't give me a freebie, I will tweet about you, etc.
And they don't like that, do they? No company likes being held to ransom.
You will always get negative people. You'll always get people who are trying to scam the system, and you'll always get people who complain. It's better, though, to know what people are actually saying about you, and the opportunities that Twitter holds for any business is far outweighs the negative side of it.
Now, this whole area, if you are coming to it for the first time, this whole area of Twitter is very confusing, as we've already said. So you set up your Twitter account and you go on there and you follow a few people and a few people follow you back. And then you start hearing things about hashtags and all that kind of baloney, and you think to yourself, well, am I having a private conversation with a group of people who are following me and I'm following them? And then is there another level of it where you start using hashtags where you're broadcasting effectively? I mean, just describe the different, if you can, just because I think it's ever so confusing, the different tiers of what Twitter is all about. Okay,
Twitter, basically, if you are putting a tweet out there, anybody can find it.
Any tweet?
Yes, any tweet, unless you protected your account, and then it's private and only people following you that you've agreed to can see it. But as a business person, I would not recommend you go down that route, because there's no point in being on Twitter if you're not doing it to be found. So there's no point in hiding your tweets or protecting your tweets and making them secret. So any tweet can be found, but if you start a tweet with an @ so it's somebody's Twitter name, only the people who follow both you and that person will see that tweet in their tweet stream. But if they want to, they could go to your profile and look up and see that tweet. So that it's still searchable, so it can be found, but it's more private.
And what about things like direct messages? Is that the same? This is direct messages.
No,
now, where do they go?
Direct messages are private, so like nobody sees them between two people. And a lot of business gets done through direct messages.
I get the impression that there's quite an etiquette around using Twitter effectively, particularly in business. What is the big question? What's the main question that businesses ask you? And from the feedback that you get, what's the big mistakes that they make?
I think the main thing is you've actually got to think about what you want to get out of using Twitter and think of it from a business sense. What are your objectives? Is it to get more brand awareness? Is it to get more sales? Or is it to build loyalty? Because it depends on which stage you're at. With a lot of SME people, and getting brand awareness is probably the strongest point, because if people, doesn't matter how fabulous you are, if people don't know you there, they're not going to buy from you. So brand awareness, and when you know that it's awareness that you want to get, then it stops people from being that salesy side, because nobody wants to be sold to. It's not that they don't want to buy, but nobody likes a sales pitch driven at them. So it's getting that a softer approach works.
Is that the
better.
biggest mistake, do you think, that when businesses go onto Twitter, what they tend to do is it's all sell, it's all output?
I think a lot of businesses think that Twitter is a free advertising tool, and they feed a constant feed of sales pitches, and then they wonder why it's not working for them. But Twitter is really a conversation. It's about building relationships, because you do business with people.
You know, we hear this about all the social networks, don't we? That it's all about building conversation. And I sometimes wonder, you see people standing up on stage and you think to yourself, OK, I mean, everybody said that now. What if they can actually do the walk? They can do the talk, but do they really know what they're talking about? How do you make certain then? Is there a ratio that you should be looking at? Is there a style? Is there a mental template you should be working on that says this is the right way to use Twitter?
OK, when I work with people using Twitter, I get them to actually start before they get onto Twitter, because the mechanics of Twitter is just one thing. You've really got to know what your brand positioning is, or sort of what you're about, and you should be able to say that in one sentence. I'm sure you've been to networking meetings and people have stood up, sprouted on for a minute, and when they sit down, you have no idea what they're talking about.
Do you know what? Actually, it reminds me of a story, very quick one, but I once went to a networking event that I was comparing. It was in Reading, and we gave away some prizes, and one of the persons, or one of the people there, a businessman, was able to stand up, and he had 2 minutes to talk about his business. And he stood up there, and he rattled on for 2 minutes. And at the end I said, I haven't got a clue what you were talking about. And neither does anybody else in the room here. So I tell you what, you've got another 2 minutes, have another bash. And you know what, 2 minutes later we were still just as confused as we were at the beginning. And I suppose that is the problem, isn't it? People who are working within their own industry and they're trying to get a message out there, they're so close to what they're doing, they can't see the wood from the trees.
I think it's very easy when you know what you're doing that you assume everybody else does, and it's very easy to use the jargon of your industry. But your customers aren't necessarily familiar with that jargon. So what I tell people to do is you say who you are, who you help, because then it becomes more customer focused, and how you help them, which explains a little bit more of what you do. With things like social media, and especially with Twitter, it's very fast moving. People don't have time to sit and try and work out what you mean or what you're about. So your bio is really, really important, so people have got a clear idea.
This is a little bit that's about you at the very beginning. Now, I tell you what, we're going to continue talking. We're going to talk about the tips, the tricks, the tools, and how you should be looking after yourself and time. But the one question I will ask you before we look at last week's programme: have you used any NLP on me yet? Am I a chicken? I'm fascinated by NLP. I'll tell you what, will you come back and do a programme about NLP? I remember we used to use that in shopping telly, and we'd say things like, well, by now, you've probably made up your mind. See, subconsciously going, by now, by now. I tell you what, you watch QVC, they're doing it all the time. You're watching Business Connections Live web programme. She's laughing now. You're watching programme number 46. It's a fascinating night tonight. Nikki Creel. I suppose over the last couple of weeks we've been talking about all aspects of social media and what you should be doing with it. Probably the one that is at the forefront of all of that for the moment, because you watch, within the next couple of years, something new will come along and scupper everything, is, of course, Twitter. But if you're not using it properly, then you're probably not getting the maximum benefit out of it. And the big problem, I suppose, is that it does take a little bit of time. You've got to manage your time. You've actually got to put some effort in to get any returns from it. as Nikki says, you've got to also decide as well what you want to achieve from it. Do you just want to raise the profile of your business or your organisation? Because you think about it, if you go to a networking event, that tends to happen a lot there. How many times do you hear people saying, I went to a networking event, go every Friday or Saturday or Wednesday morning, I have breakfast there, I stand up in front of the same people, I tell them the same things, and I never get any returns out of it. And really what you're doing is you're not probably selling, as this is what Paul said in the first show, you're not selling to the room. What in fact you're doing is you are you're raising their awareness of the service that you provide. And maybe at a later date they'll turn around and they'll go, do you know what? I know someone that can do what you want them to do. And then you'll get a recommendation, and that really is what networking is all about. But a lot of people don't really understand that. And to a certain extent, I'm sure you'll agree with me, Twitter's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now, last week on the program we had Jim McLaughlin from Axial. He came in, he was talking to us about business development in a connected world, the impact of the internet on all aspects of business. Of course, we talked about Twitter, we talked about LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll be talking about them again tonight. Facebook, in fact, all the different social media sites that are out there at the moment, and how they can affect you and what you should be doing with them to develop your business and actually to grow your business as well. Because these are all great opportunities for you to actually use and to get out there and to raise awareness and to increase profits. So if you're not doing that, if you're not using social media, is your business missing out? It's a bit of a reminder of what happened in last week's edition of Business Connections Live. This evening, what we're going to be talking about is business development, your business development in a connected world. What does that mean to you and I? Well, to reveal all is Jim McLaughlin. He's the Managing Director of Axial.
What we're really talking about today is the impact that the internet and different aspects of communication via the internet is having on business development. So the first question clearly is, what do we mean by business development? For some people, business development is about selling. For some people, it's about marketing. For startup companies, often it's about hustling. And then he looked to put together a very eloquent exposition of what business development is, and he came up with something along the lines of business development brings together analysis, planning, marketing and sales to ensure maximum impact in the marketplace. But I think that for many businesses there's a great deal of confusion about how can I use new social media to help develop my business, and in fact, are social media the right way for me to develop my business? One of the areas that causes a lot of grief to people is understanding that sometimes you want to put out a sales message, and then if you want to put out a sales message, you should choose an appropriate medium for putting out a sales message. And that medium could be a brochure, it could be telemarketing, for example. If you want to use social media, and most people who want to have an integrated marketing campaign will want to consider how they use social media. It's very important to understand that usually the objective that you will achieve using social media will not be to generate leads for your product or service, because that's not what consumers use social media for. So using any of the social media platforms typically will not directly generate sales. So for LinkedIn, that would mean joining particular interest groups, and those groups may be around a particular technology, they may be around a particular type of product. So what they would want to do would be to have a person or people who are members of those groups who are generating, who are throwing questions, relevant questions into those groups, or who are answering questions that are put in by other people. And the purpose there typically would be to try and establish the company as a thought leader. If you don't understand who your audience is, and you don't understand the value that you can deliver to that audience, it's going to be very difficult to craft a message that will actually speak to that audience. And ideally what you're looking to do is to understand what the benefits are that you can deliver and articulate those in the most concise, effective way that you can. But again, we have to take a step back and say, what is it that we want to achieve with a particular message? Are we looking to build the image and the brand of our company and our services, or are we looking to sell a product and a service? And the social media element of the business development mix really come into their own when you're looking at building the profile and building the credibility of the company rather than actually trying to make the sale. I'm Jim McLaughlin, Managing Director of Axial. We're a business development company. We help small and medium-sized businesses find more customers and understand their marketplace better. Today I've been talking about business development in the connected world. And the key points that I would like to leave with you are that the medium for getting your message across is important, but the message itself is key and essential. To get that message right, the first step that you need to take is to make sure you have a clear understanding of who your audience is, both in terms of the kind of businesses that you're targeting and the individuals within those businesses, and the benefits that you offer those people. You then need to decide if the message that you want to put out is designed to build your brand and your credibility, or if it's designed to generate sales, to sell your product, to sell more of your product and service. And those two elements are part of a process, but they're different parts of the process. Once you've decided all of those things, ideally what you should be looking to do is to build a strategy and a marketing plan for a period of time that incorporates the most appropriate media to ensure you achieve your objectives. So by all means, use social media. If what you want to do is to strengthen your brand and strengthen your credibility, but if you want to achieve sales in a B2B environment, you should also be thinking about more traditional methods of reaching your marketplace, like telemarketing, like advertising. So the whole mix of marketing tools that are at your disposal.
He's a very nice man, that lovely Jim McLaughlin. It's a programme, Jim, but not as we know it. I tell you what, it's great to have you with us tonight. It is programme number 46. My guest this evening is Nikki Creel. We're talking all about Twitter tonight. If you've been thinking about using Twitter, maybe you already have. Maybe you've had a bit of a try at it and you're thinking, you know what, I don't understand what all the fuss is about. Maybe tonight we're going to change a few things. We've already explained, I mean, some of the statistics when it comes to what Twitter is all about are quite phenomenal, aren't they? Yeah. Can you remember the numbers that you've written down?
I was going to say it's a while since I've written it down. The numbers are phenomenal, and I think most people can't even comprehend the numbers.
I mean, when you look at it here, Twitter has over 500 million users and 135,000 new users signing up. How often do you reckon? A year? A month? A week? 135,000 new users signing up every single day. How do you cut through the noise?
I think it's remembering that people are the most important thing when you use Twitter. It's very easy to, and it has got increasingly noisy because I've been on Twitter now for quite a while, since 2009, and it used to have a lot more traction. But if you're talking to people, as we're using it to connect with people, they actually will pay attention to you.
Are you really trying to build like your own little community?
Yes.
And really sort of carving that out from the noise?
It makes a big difference if you talk to people and you interact with people, and quite often just by tweeting at the same time of the day, you'll get to know people who are there.
I saw what you did there. I saw what you, did you see what you did there? Because we're just about to be talking about the right time to tweet. And you can see what she did. So time, finding the time, managing your time, and the best time to tweet. I'm one of these people where I think that if I'm using something like Hootsuite, we'll explain what Hootsuite is, but it's a way of automating your tweets. But if I was using Hootsuite, then what I would do is, this is where you're going to go, wrong!
I was going to say,
wrong! 9 o'clock-ish, about 9:05. Let the big flurry go in there, and then about 9:05, just because it just seems that I can't remember who described it on the programme. When you send a tweet and you publicly broadcast it, it's like sticking a message on the windscreen of a car on a windy day, because what will happen? It's on there for a moment, then it's gone.
Yes, possibly, but it's amazing how tweets will remain and how many people see a tweet. Quite often, I've had tweets and nobody's responded to the tweet at all. It's almost like if a log falls in a forest, doesn't make a sound, you know, sort of that type of thing. But I've had tweets that nobody responded, so I was sure that nobody had seen them. And then 2 months later, somebody asked me, and the only place I'd mentioned it was on Twitter. And I've quite often had people referring back to tweets that have had absolutely no response. So you have to assume that, well, I suppose there's two things: that nobody is definitely going to see it, because sometimes people go, oh, but I've been tweeting about it, aren't you following me? Nobody is that obsessed with you that they're going to follow anything, unless you've got a stalker.
Sad face.
Sad face. But at the same time, everything that you do is public, so you've also got to be mindful that you're putting it out in a public arena. But it's a case of there's not a set time that you need to tweet for.
But there must be a best time.
There may be a better time, and obviously the better time is one where you've got
Better
more
than
of
my
your
time.
more followers are online at the same time. So you have tools like Tweeted.
Who?
Tweeted, as in period with a TW.
At the front. So
Yeah, Tweeted.
Write that down. Tweeted, if you don't mind. So Tweeted, that's a tool, is it?
Yes, it's a tool. And
Right,
basically it will help. The free version will look at if you've got 1,000 followers, or it will look at your latest.
TWIT.
TWERIOD.
Sorry?
As in period.
Oh,
Tweeted.
right. Oh, of course, yeah. Spelling. I know, right. I just love Google, don't you? There it is. So here it is. You know, so I had a momently, I forgot who or where I was. Okay. So here we go. So start tweeting when others are listening. Twitter, it gives you the best time to tweet. We analyse both your tweets and your followers' tweets, so you can start tweeting when it makes most sense to reach others. So how does it work? Well, there, it's going to tell you how it works. If you want the address, it is www.tweriod.com. That's what she was mumbling to me, just to prove that I can read out loud. Anyway, so is that a useful tool?
I'd say it's useful to look at least once to see when people are tweeting. And the annoying thing was, I looked at it and said the best time for me to tweet was about 4 o'clock to get the most retweets and things. And I thought, I'm sure this isn't going to work.
What, 4 o'clock in the morning?
No, 4 p.m. And it really depends on your customers. And I'm going to talk about not being too obsessed with what everybody says you should do. Okay.
Right.
So I tweeted at 4 p.m. and I had so many retweets on that particular tweet, it just almost despite me that it wasn't that was the right time to tweet. I think these tools are useful because it helps you to see the patterns of when your followers are there. If you've got a lot of American followers, at 12 o'clock the East Coast wakes up, so they tend to get active then, and a few hours later you've got the West Coast waking up, and most people are active the first thing in the morning. But if they're not your customers, you've got to think in the mindset of who your customers are. So if you're talking office workers, it's probably first thing in the morning, maybe lunchtime, and probably straight after work. Whereas for mums, it might be after the school run. Yeah. Or after, sort of like after the kids in bed.
So it's just identifying who your target audience is going to be, their lifestyle, what they do, and then trying to fit it into that lifestyle or how you would imagine them to be living.
But I mean, if you look at the pattern, one of the times it said low numbers were probably about 9 o'clock, but because I was tweeting regularly at that time, I was getting a lot of response at that time because people get used to you being around at that certain time. But we're all creatures of habit, so we tend to do things.
But it's interesting, you say that it suggested it would be 4 o'clock for you, but you are targeting businesses. You just said, dare I say it to remind you, in the morning, business workers, 9 o'clock, maybe lunchtime as well. Yeah. It's just interesting that the profile, that as you perceive your profile, is different from the way it sees your profile.
The businesses with a lot of SMEs, they're working from home or they're working from a small office. So they're probably online most of the day, and they're probably interacting throughout, because it's, I suppose, your water cooler moment. If you need a break, often you work in isolation, and just have a chance to chat to other people, feel part of a team. Twitter is really useful for that, and people dip in and out. A lot of people have notifications, so if somebody gives you a message, you see it and you react to it. So I tend to, when on my computer, when I'm not out training and doing things like that, I'll have Twitter up as one of my things, and I will notice if there's notifications coming through on Twitter, so I'll respond quite quickly. I don't spend that long on Twitter, and I know that what I wanted to talk about time is that...
Well, I was going to say to you, how long... I read somewhere that really you should be committing maybe 15 minutes, half an hour to your social media profiles in a day.
I think you need at least 15 minutes on Twitter every day. And I say every day because it's amazing how much work I've actually got in over the weekends. People don't, you know, sort of like it's not your classic time. So a lot of businesses go, oh, well, just do Monday to Friday. But people are interacting at all times. And if you're talking to people as people, then that relationship doesn't matter what time you're tweeting to them. But with Twitter, it's quite important to have a presence and to keep on showing up. But if you're quite strategic about how you use it...
But there must be a problem where if you're showing up on a regular basis... I mean, you're familiar, of course, with Brad Burton.
Yeah.
Yeah, 174 tweets on average a day.
Yes.
That's a lot of tweets. Yes. At what point does it become spam?
Well, some people are very busy tweeting, and other people are quieter tweets. I don't tend to tweet that much. Someone like Dee, who was on your show 2 weeks ago, you can tell when she's actually there, because suddenly she will tweet a lot, and she will tweet out some tips, she'll start interacting with people. So you actually know when she's live. Whereas other people will actually schedule tweets to go out throughout the day, so they're getting coverage, they'll be remaining top of mind. Someone like Guy Kawasaki will tweet every 8 hours regularly. You know, it's like the same tweet every 8 hours. He's very, very noisy on it. People like Brad Burton will frighten a lot of people off. If you're new to Twitter, you just see this endless stream.
It is an endless stream.
But if you like Brad and you like chatting and you dip in and out and you want to know what he's thinking every single minute, then that's fine. You actually get a real feel for what he's like.
Well, I must admit, we met Brad prior to meeting Brad, but we met him on Twitter first.
Yeah.
And the bloke was everything we expected him to be.
Exactly.
And he was an incredible man, you know, very motivational. But does he overuse social media? That's the question. If you like Brad, then it's not enough.
Fine, yeah.
If you want someone to be in your mailbox all the time and in your face, which he's like in real life, but real sweetie, you're going to get that on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, if it does show his personality, and you do get a strong flavour for who he is. So if the joy of Twitter is, if somebody is bugging you, you just don't follow them anymore.
But the thing about Brad, Brad's an interesting case, I think. 174 Twitters a day. This is Brad Burton, by the way. He's the founder of 4 Networking, #1 motivational speaker, the man that's organised the UK's largest networking event, the Business Networking Show, which we're going to be at. That leads us in quite nicely, actually. If you want to go along to this, Wolverhampton Racecourse on Friday, the 10th of September. I was only down there at the beginning, or the 19th rather. 19th, Friday the 19th of September. Ticket sales, you can see, you can book now, £20. Here are some of the guests. Stefan, who's been on the programme, Business Networking for Dummies. We've got Rachel's going to be there. Neil Clough's going to be there from The Apprentice. That's going to be interesting. Are you going?
No, I'm not going to go. I've got something else on that day, I'm sorry. But Neil's lovely. He's a quite...
Is he very good?
I spoke at an event he was speaking at in Newcastle, and he's such a lovely guy.
In Newcastle on Monday, in fact. I'm looking forward to that. Brad's going to be there, Dee's going to be there, but probably the most important thing about the whole event is we're going to be there. And we're going to be broadcasting live, so if you can't make it to the event, we're going to be talking to the different exhibitors, we're going to be talking to the people who are giving presentations throughout the day. We're going to be broadcasting from the morning all the way through the entire day. We've got a roving camera, fingers crossed, they'll be going around the show and talking to some of the exhibitors, so you get a real feel for what the UK's largest networking event is going to be all about. Once again, I'll just show you the big logo here. It is the Business Networking Show 2014. Go on then, show me the computer screen. There you go. Wolverhampton Racecourse, Friday the 19th of September. And as it says there, don't miss it, book now. It could be, and there's the Twitter handle as well, Twitter at TBN Show. And hashtag TBNS 2014. Hashtag what's all about. All right then, so we've talked then about being careful about spamming.
Yeah.
Got to be careful. We've talked about if you are sending tweets out, trying to make them engaging. Don't just be going, I've got this to sell you, buy, buy, buy. That's a bad thing. That will get people to switch off and disconnect from you. If there was anything else that you would advise people when it does come to twittering, what would it be? What would be the other, or even tweeting, what would be the other kind of content?
Well, I think you need to think about what would be interesting for the person reading it. And if you got that viewpoint of, this is what I want to get across, but what would be interesting for somebody who's following me to read. It then changes the perspective. You should be using you a lot more than the word I. You know, instead of I'm doing this, it should be you, and then you'll start thinking in terms of your customer or your reader.
A typical tweet from you, what would it be? This, if you had to send a tweet right now, get me out of here. I'm Nicky Creel, get me out of here.
I was going to say, you should see what Steve's wearing underneath.
He's completely naked from the waist down. So what would be your typical construction of a tweet? Because you're restricted on the number of words and letters that you can actually use.
I say when you tweet, well, firstly, you probably don't want to do more than 120 characters.
Oh, really?
Okay. It makes it a lot easier to retweet. So the optimum length for a retweet is somewhere between 70 characters and 110 characters. Below 70, you're probably not saying anything that's worth retweeting. And over 110, you're probably making it hard if somebody wants to put the RT and the person's name in front of it. So there seems to be an optimum length of a tweet, that if you want to get it retweeted.
And what about including media with it then? Pictures and video links and stuff like that? Is that a good way to increase the number?
Well, in fact, if it contains a link, because then you're sharing knowledge and information, it's more likely to get a retweet. There's also something about the position of the link. So if you put it at the end, it's less likely to get retweeted than if you have it in the middle of your tweet or in the beginning. Yeah.
That's a bit the old NLP going on there, isn't it? So put your links in the middle.
Yeah, pictures are big news everywhere on social media. They get the most clicks, they get the most retweets on Twitter. And so if you can include pictures, lots of people are now putting the same words they put in a tweet as a little picture form. I don't particularly like that. But just in case you haven't noticed it, you know that you now can add 4 pictures to a tweet.
No, I didn't know that.
Ah.
Ha-ha. So there's our Twitter account that we've got there. Will it open on that? Yeah, there it is. There's our Twitter account. So you can now, or tweeting account, or whatever it's called. But you can now actually add 4 pictures to a tweet when you're sending it out.
Yeah. So if you take it on your camera, on your phone, it's the same thing. You can add up to 4 photographs at once. So you can make a nice collage, and it's quite interesting what you can do with that.
Do you know, we have talked for 20 minutes, we've only got 20 minutes left, and we've only talked about time, so let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about the few tools that are very useful to help you be more effective. For, first of all, monitoring conversations. Sourcing content, repurposing content, I would imagine, is big news when it comes to tweeting. We've kind of touched on scheduling tweets.
I was going to say, a good tool, it's still in beta, is a tool called Scredible.
Who?
Scredible, as in social credible.
Scredible. It's in beta, yeah. Tell us about it.
It's in beta, but you can sign up and join it on beta. And basically what it does is you say, I'm interested in this type of news, and these are the type of websites that generally give me the right type of news, and it will find news that's relevant to you. And
so it's just a bit like an RSS feed then of old, where you could find the appropriate sources of information
it's a little bit cleverer
news.
than that, because it actually learns what you're interested in by how you click and how you share, which things you share. So it will actually, it does a lot more than
so
that.
give us the website or the web name again. It's called?
Scredible.
Spell it for everybody.
Scredible.
There we go. It's as easy and straightforward as that. There we go. Fantastic.
So that's one.
So that's one.
Yeah.
We've obviously got Hootsuite
You've got
sitting on here
Hootsuite.
as well, which I think is a fantastic piece of software. Just explain for me what Hootsuite can do for you.
Okay, Hootsuite is a very clever tool. You can use the free version, but I would recommend that you consider using the paid for one, which is under a tenner. So it's not expensive. And the reason I say that is the free one can do a lot of things. What I like about it is you can set columns. So if you put people in lists on Twitter, so you put them in groups. Do you know about lists on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking
Yeah,
what
that's
you know.
okay, don't worry.
You can then put it in columns. You can also search for people mentioning a certain thing, or you can search on hashtags. So you can set up almost a monitoring system on Hootsuite.
And there are two versions of this, aren't there? Because on my camera,
Your
phone. On my phone, I've
Yeah.
got a mobile version that's sitting
Yeah.
on that, and then you've got the paid-for version, which we use for Business Connections Live.
What the paper one is useful for is scheduling tweets. So there are things like if you know that if you set out what you go on to actually put out on Twitter, so your content that you want to get out there. So some of them might be sharing useful information. It might be I suppose friendly stuff, or it might be talking about your business, it might be talking about local news. It depends on your business or what you might choose to do that. You can schedule quite a few of those, or if you've got tips that you want to give out, you could write the tips.
You can nearly
and
drip
schedule.
feed it, can't you? And this is classic internet marketing, isn't it? To actually drip the information out.
I think the danger is, and I had somebody who came on one of my Twitter courses, and she'd programmed and scheduled about photography courses. And just before her tweet went out, or the same day as her tweet went out, one of their pupils got arrested for taking pictures of naked girls in the shower. And he was in the newspaper headline of, and then the tweet came out about learn how to take photos at
How
the
unfortunate.
school, which is unfortunate.
But I got offered it though. But how unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
And that is a danger, isn't it? Because
It's
you are
danger.
putting your business out there.
I think with anything that you automate, you need to actually think about it quite carefully. And with Hootsuite, you can schedule it against like Google Plus and LinkedIn and Facebook. And quite often people automatically put stuff out and they put the same message out everywhere. There's no point in people following you everywhere if you're saying exactly the same thing at the same time. And quite often they will have linked their Facebook to the Twitter account. So it means that when they tweet, if they put it on Facebook, it automatically comes on Twitter. So it's coming out on Twitter and then it's coming out from the Facebook feed. So you get lots of duplications and you can see people who really don't know what they're doing.
Is that a bad thing?
What if they don't know what they're doing? I think the best thing is really.
You see, I must admit, I'm dreadful, and to a certain extent, Hootsuite allows you to do that, doesn't it? It's very easy just to say, right, there's the message I want to get out, what we're doing. If we're maybe, shall we say, promoting a program or trying to tell people, we will go Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, we'll do the whole lot. And Hootsuite will allow you to do that, won't it?
Yeah. You see, for me personally, I don't tend to use Hootsuite that much because I'm one of these strange people. When I'm on Twitter, I go to Twitter. When I'm on Facebook, I go to Facebook. When I'm on Google Plus, I go to Google Plus. When I'm on LinkedIn. So I like to get in the mindset of whichever social media platform I'm on because they're all different. They've got different nuances and you use different language. There's different etiquette. So it's quite nice to actually remember where you are. But one thing I'm really bad is telling people about my courses or sort of like all the normal regular things that I need to do. And so I've got somebody who's scheduled those for me, so they go out automatically. So I don't have to think about it, so I can just do the random chatting to people, having a conversation, responding to people.
Is that the idea perhaps maybe Hootsuite then? You can use something like Hootsuite that will do that little bit of promotion for you.
Yeah.
But you must still get engaged with people. You must still talk to them. It's Linda actually here. I've got my own personal Twitter account, and I don't tweet as much as I should do. It's Linda that does predominantly most of the twittering here. She knew nothing about it when she started working on it, and it actually has worked very hard on trying to get an angle on it and trying to understand exactly. In fact, you were a big help at the very beginning. Let me ask you a question. Second biggest search engine
is YouTube.
Well done. 10 out of 10. Did you know that? Second biggest search engine is YouTube. You should actually be using video to be maybe promoting your business or the services that you provide. It's a really good idea. Of course, we're available for free right now on YouTube, and we would, now she told me off for doing this, but I'm going to do it for the night. We'll look into an alternative way. You can subscribe, but not now, but there is a button on the video just about here, and you can subscribe to us, and you can become one of our followers, and that means that you're going to be let know when there's new content up there and all the rest of it. Second largest search engine. So start thinking about that. We all battle to SEO and to get into Google at the top of the page, but maybe we shouldn't be battling quite so hard to be #1 in Google and try and get up in the rankings in YouTube. You'll never guess, by the way, who owns YouTube. That's right, Google. And you'll never guess what happens when you put a video up on YouTube. Google likes it. So it's a really powerful way to make certain that you are sort of growing your business by using video. Now, if you'd like a program just like this one that you could put up on YouTube, on your website, for instance, that would be then received well by Google and maybe raise your profile, giving you an opportunity to tell people about what your business is doing, then why don't you get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live? All you got to do is drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com, or just simply go to the website. There it is there. Just go to the website and you'll find there a little form says the email address now as well. We're getting it all now. It's all coming together. If you want to contact us, please do, or you can give us a call. Just ring us. You'll find the telephone number on the website. But honestly, video, I mean, let's face it, we all love watching television. We all love watching ourselves. If you've got a great message, if you've got a great product that's going to help somebody, what a great way of telling people. You know, just get on there and we can do a program just like that that'll promote it for you. So get in touch with us. It's not that expensive, only a leg, not an arm and a leg. And while you are watching us on YouTube, we'd like you to subscribe as well. Have a look at this. If you're a business owner and you need advice on how to make your business more successful, then Business Connections Live TV is just for you.
Our leading industry experts cut out the guesswork for growing businesses. How to use social media, what to expect from your accountant, web design, SEO, and so much more.
Business Connections Live TV is here to give you the motivation you need to succeed.
How you doing? My name's Brad Burton. I'm the motivational speaker that everyone's talking about right now, and I'm on Business Connections Live. What a show. What a show. People, do check it out.
If you're struggling with Facebook and LinkedIn.
Most people that I meet are on LinkedIn. Virtually, you know, there's 14.5 million people just in the UK. I think the figures currently are 238 million people worldwide. But I would say that most of them don't really understand how to use it.
How to present your ideas more effectively.
Hello, I'm Philip Skinner, Walker Lees. A brilliant way to get message across. I'm actually thinking that we might switch away from our quarterly newsletter to do a video.
We'll quiet Phil down. There we are. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry about that. Listen, you're watching Business Connections Live. Now, this is the book that this young lady has brought out. I'll just pop it down over here so you can have a quick gander. How to Twitter for Business Success. Learn how it works, why it works, how to find followers, and what to tweet. A lot of what has been said this evening on the programme is actually in there. It's a fascinating book, actually. When we read it for the first time, it highlighted a whole number of different things that really all of a sudden we started to understand how to use Twitter properly, and of course it comes from the live experience of Nikki. The thing though about the book is that people buy this book and they take it with them on holiday. And then when they're away on holiday, what do they do with it? They don't just read it anymore, do they?
They take pictures of them on their holiday.
When you say it out loud, it sounds silly, doesn't it?
Well, it's not just on holiday. So people have tried. It's quite funny how it's taken on, and people are quite competitive of where they getting their pictures taken. So I've had it up in a hot air balloon. I've had it in a wicker casket. Somebody took a picture of it underwater in a pool. So, which was fabulous. But you know something? Nobody has taken it in a space station yet. So
Not
if
yet.
any astronaut out there, but let me know. But quite often people say, oh, I hope I'm the first person to send you a picture of your book on my piano, you know, on a piano. And you think, well,
No.
yes. But I get pictures of, you know, like somebody went to New York on the Queen Mary, and as she's arriving in New York, she takes a picture of my book arriving in New York at dawn.
It's a bit like what they used to do at the Gnomes, isn't it? The Gnomes would do
Yeah.
world tours. Are any of these pictures actually on your website?
Yes, they are. I've got a Pinterest board. Actually, they're not on there.
No.
They're on my social media sites. I've got a Pinterest board,
Right.
which I've collected a lot of the pictures.
There'll be a link on here that'll
Yeah.
take me to the Pinterest. There we go.
And if you do the how to Twitter.
How
the
to Twitter for
board.
business.
Yeah.
Here are the. This is barking, isn't it? What do we do? So look at that. Now you can see here we've got. These are just some of the locations. So we've had 4 there from Spain, 3 from Italy. Was that on a boat? That one there, was it?
That's Madeira.
Madeira,
and then
lovely.
There's Cape Verde.
Down here, and then we're out into the tropics and the Caribbean,
Yeah.
just over there. And let's just have a look at just a couple of the pictures. Let's just see if we can find.
What I love is each one has got a story, and I tell people about the business behind the book. So these people, it's interesting, it's lovely. This was somebody I met on the plane.
Wonderful.
And she went out and bought my book, and she works for the NHS.
And there it is, look, on
Yeah.
the Kindle. How about that? If you want to get hold of the book, by the way, you can get the book on Amazon, I would imagine. Yeah. And also, if you go to Nikki Creel's website as well, you'll find a link to actually being able to buy the book. If you want to write down the title, it's How to Twitter for Business Success. It is a fascinating book. It does tell you the inside track of what you should be knowing when it comes to how to Twitter appropriately. But the thing that's nice about it is that it is like Twitter in its own right. It is building an actual community when it comes to Twittering. I can't believe it. It's tools we've talked about. Let's talk about some of the tips, new things on Twitter that they may not know about. Well,
Okay.
Let's talk for the last 10 minutes about that.
If somebody's got a blog, like a I don't know, do you use WordPress or?
We use WordPress, yeah.
Okay. What you can now do is what's called a Twitter card. So you can actually, some tweets you'll see where they've got pictures underneath or parts of their blog that are written down, and it's easy enough to set up a Twitter card, and it's actually quite useful because it gives you a picture automatically for your blog.
Right.
So it gives you a lot more coverage.
And is that a relatively new
Yes,
feature that's just come in?
recently? Another thing is I would suggest that people sign up for Twitter ads. It's not to say that you necessarily need to use it, because now Twitter ads are a lot cheaper, but they now have great analytics, which if you are a Twitter ad customer, or so even though I've not spent a penny on Twitter, I can now see great analytics on my Twitter.
Oh, that's a very
Yeah.
clever idea, particularly if you're in business, isn't it?
Yes. So you can actually see, and it's not on the level of followers, how many followers, it's about engagement, reach, you know, and it shows, it graphs it beautifully. So you actually can see interesting things, and it shows you the best time to tweet as well.
As well,
Yeah.
as well as the other one that we talked about earlier on, where Twitteroid. Yeah, that's one. Well remembered. So, what other new tools are there out there that the new things that Twitter's coming along with? And I suppose the other question is that they're bringing out these new things. They're trying to re-energise it. They're trying to reconnect with their audiences out there, even though it's still growing.
Yeah.
But it's today's big thing, isn't it? I mean, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Well, everybody at certain stages have said, oh, Twitter's declining, etc. But now you can't watch a TV program or listen to a radio station without a hashtag being announced.
Right, let's talk about, just for a short length of time, we're going to talk about hashtags.
Yeah, okay.
What are they all about then? Now, for instance, on this program, we should have hashtag watch the live show or something. And then, is it a case like you put the hashtag up, and then if everybody puts that hashtag into the Twitter that's related to the program, you can find them all easy, and it groups them?
Yes, it does. It basically groups conversations together. So in a nutshell, it never used to exist, and it's something created by Twitter, because if you say, for example, talking about, let's say, Mount Etna erupting, you don't want to each time say, I'm talking about Mount Etna erupting, because you wouldn't have any space to tweet. So quite often they'll have, like Etna might be the
Hashtag Etna.
Yeah.
Right.
So hashtags are used for different things. So you can use it for tagging. If you've got like a PR tip, you use hashtag PR tip. If you're trying to connect with journalists, you might use hashtag journal request, because a lot of journalists will put out requests using that hashtag. So if you want to help journalists, if you use that hashtag, you can find it. Lots of jobs use certain hashtags. So it's a way of finding information and making yourself more visible. There's also things like Twitter chats. I don't know if you've ever taken part in a Twitter chat.
No, I haven't.
They've got Twitter chats are almost like an online forum. So quite often they'll take part for an hour, and people will get active, and they will talk using that hashtag.
And aren't there a few of those that sort of take place? Isn't there a Friday one or something?
Yeah, there are quite a few regular ones, like this Saturday Chat UK, Sat Chat UK, which is on Saturday morning. Far too early for me, from 8 to 9, very early. I prefer to sleep in on a Saturday morning. There's also things like Surrey Hour, which is on Tuesday, and Hampshire Hour, which is on Thursday. So there's sort of set times, and there's lots of business conversations going on.
So this is really like... it's virtual networking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's virtual networking, and
but
it creates
do you
almost
find,
like
it'd be interesting, we should have looked at one of those. Do you find that when they do those kind of virtual networking events, in the same way as you do at a normal networking event, you have a lot of people selling?
yes, sometimes you do, but it's finding the right ones to do. You know, there's no point in, if everybody is just spamming or doing classified ads in a tweet stream, but they can be really useful, because things like Neil's Yard, I know they had what they called a Twitter party, and they had people talking about a certain thing, and they actually signed up a lot of people, because people could ask the questions and get involved in that. And I know somebody who did it with Innocent, and so like the Innocent drinks, and they had a party, and it was all about positive things, etc. And that got really, really active at that
I mean,
time.
it sounds like if you do utilise it and you go for it, it sounds like you're going to have a lot of fun.
Yes, I think if you don't think Twitter's fun, it's going to come across in the way you tweet. It will be bland and it's a vanilla.
Okay. Listen, we're nearly out of time, but I'm going to ask you for a couple of... this makes us look very prepared, actually. I'm going to ask you for a couple of maybe 1 or 2 sentence answers to these. So, setting goals and objectives, important?
Yes, very important to know what you want to get out of using for Twitter, and especially with time management. Because if you just randomly going on, and you could waste your whole day being on Twitter and not have achieved anything for your business.
Having a social media policy, what does that mean to a business?
It's a case of, for a one-man band, it's different than if you've got 100 employees. It's actually thinking, what happens if, say, one of the employees says something bad? How would you respond to it? Would you sack them immediately, or is it considered like a written warning?
I'd let them worry about it for a while.
Yeah.
Then I'd fire them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some people have sacked people for something small. So you need to actually say, this is what it is. It should be written into your human resources policies and employment policies, but also things like who can tweet for the company. The best companies are where social media and Twitter is part of the lifeblood of the company, where everybody's empowered because they've been trained, they've been taught the way to use it properly. And so you create all these voices that can actually magnify things greatly. But if you've got people who don't know what they're doing, tweeting, unusual things can happen. So it's worth knowing, like, who's going to tweet for our business. Sort of like, are we going to tweet as ourselves or as the company? Are they, sort of like, are we going to tweet as a dog? Because some people do that as well.
So, thank you. So important then a social media policy. Make certain, you know. In fact, at the I was talking to somebody who works for a large motoring organisation, and they were telling me that one of their patrols, that gives it away, has more followers than the president, Edmund King, does, and actually gets a huge response back because he is tweeting as the company, which is fabulous. All right, a few more questions. We're nearly there. Scheduled tweets, important. Do them, but try to interact live if you can.
I think scheduling tweets will free up your time to actually do human interactions. They can't be a substitute for being human and being there.
Use hashtags?
Yes, but do not overuse hashtags. There's a lot of hashtag abuse where people think that you need to hashtag everything, and I think there's no reason that you would ever need more than 3 hashtags in a tweet, let alone 2. So I think use them with caution. I've got lots of followers, they're over 1,000 followers, and I don't use hashtags that much because I know they frighten newbies, and I get a lot of Twitter newbies following me, so I'm very cautious about using hashtags.
All right then. Structure your tweets, we've already talked about that. Retweet anything interesting that may help your customers.
Yeah. I think it's not all about you, okay? It's what's interesting for your customer. So by sharing useful information, things that can educate or inform, make somebody smile. If you can make somebody smile, they feel a warm fuzziness towards you. So there's a sort of like that synergy, and they will remember you for it. If it's a case of if you bring the right news to people, people respect you, and it sets you up as an authority, an expert in your area.
And finally, don't spam.
Yeah, don't spam. And spam is different things to different people. So for some people, sending out a lot of tweets will be spam.
All right. Nikki, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know we've whistled through it there at the end. Nikki Creel, social media consultant, trainer and author of that fantastic book, as well as How to Tweet for Business Success. I think we've had a couple of technical problems this evening, but hey-ho, it happens. We're live, and that's what it's all about. I think we've got the information that we really do need there. Would you do me one last favour? Would you look straight down camera number 1? I hope this will work. Straight down camera number 1, and really just give us the key takeaways that we should remember. I know we kind of whistled through them there, but it is an important area for you to be concentrating on when it comes to your business. With over 500 million units, 135,000 new users signing up each and every day, there's a big audience out there. Okay, yes, it's worldwide, we understand that, but the audience in the UK, if you're a UK business, is going to be quite substantial. If you're an international business across Europe, thousands upon thousands, millions of people have signed up to Twitter. In the States, once again, exactly the same. Millions upon millions of people signed up who could well be reading your business's message and your business's tweets, and maybe, who knows, actually generating and growing your business for you. Write down camera number 1 to say who you are, and after that, the airwaves are yours. You now have as long as you need. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Nikki Creel, social media consultant, trainer and author of How to Twitter for Business Success. And I work with business owners, inspiring them to use social media more strategically, empowering them to use it through training them and giving them the right skills to use social media. And I actually help people manage it if they're time deficient and need help maintaining a social media presence. On Twitter, there are so many tips I could give you. I could go on for another hour or two just talking directly to the camera. But I'd like to say that you remember that when you tweet, you're actually interacting with people, and building a relationship with people should never be underestimated. You don't know where that relationship might go, so a single tweet and a single thank you might actually be the start of a relationship. I've built some fabulous relationships through Twitter, which has led to things like, for example, since she was a previous guest, I'll do this. We built a relationship through Twitter. And as a result of that, I'm actually writing a chapter in a new book. She wrote my foreword in my book. So we've got a strong relationship, and it's been, well, I like her a lot as a person, so that's worked out fine. Just remember that tweeting is not about you. Think about who your readers are, or who might read that tweet, and write with them in mind. And I think it's a case of not doing the sales pitch all the time. It's not that you can't sell to people, it's that you should balance it out with being nice, giving helpful, useful information, interacting with people. So there should be a nice balance, and probably you should check your tweets if you do it a lot. So probably about 4 to 1 sort of salesy type of tweet. It's all right to blow your own trumpet. That's what you're there for. You're in business. And if you're using it as a marketing tool, you need to actually occasionally talk about your business. But I think the most important thing with Twitter is have fun, because it is fun, and just be open to whatever opportunities can happen, because you never know what can come out of a single tweet.
Well, there we are. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. That was fantastic, Nikki Creel. We've been talking about Twitter time, tools and tips. And you know what? We do it all again next week as well on a Wednesday evening. We'll be live at 6 o'clock. Our guest on next week's programme is Tom Higgins. He's the CEO of Goldeye, recently given the Queen's Award for Enterprise for Innovation. So we've got Tom with us on next week's programme, absolutely live. Don't forget, if you want to, you can subscribe to us here. All you got to do is you can press that now. Press it now. It'll take you away from the page, but press that. But I tell you what, we'd love to do it all again next week at 6 o'clock. From me, Steve Highland, and Nikki Creel. Have yourself a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week live on Business Connections Live. See you then. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.